Welcome to A Lunch with Biggie, a podcast about small business and creatives sharing their stories and inspiring you. My guest today created Sarasota's original indie craft show as a way to support local artists, artisans who were making handmade items that were quirky, eccentric, edgy. 16 years later, it's bigger, it's trendier, it's sweeter, it's edgier. Please welcome the leader of the Misfit Makers, Adrien Lucas. Adrien, what's going on? How are you doing today?
I am so excited to be here and I love seeing your workroom. It's
Uh,
beautiful.
Thank you. It's a organized chaos is what I call it. So I definitely appreciate it, especially during the holiday as the holiday seasons come. You know how crazy it can get. So I
If you could
definitely
see what's behind me,
I see.
it is insane. And the floor has fur all over it because I'm
Oh,
remaking signs that really needed a facelift. So,
okay.
I mean, yeah,
I love
it's a
it. I love it.
mess.
Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I know this is a busy time for you, and we'll talk about why and everything like that. For having a lunch break with me. Obviously, my usual question for everyone is, since we're having a lunch break, what's your go-to lunch sandwich? What do you usually go to?
Whatever my husband is serving me with his special Italian peppers, and they're nicknamed rough cut because my dad made a joke about how guy really just kind of chop, 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 chop things up, and they're never really like precise or pretty, but they're
Yeah.
so good, and the oil is really good. And my husband just makes a damn good sandwich. So
He
whatever my man is serving me,
I absolutely love that. They studies have shown that that food tastes better when someone else makes it for you. So that
it's
does
true.
I totally believe that. So tell people a little bit about I talked about, it's Atomic Holiday Bazaar, but tell people a little bit about how you came up with the idea to start this about 16 years ago, because it started in 2006. Tell people how that kind of how it all kind of came about.
I moved to Sarasota from Los Angeles, and I had a handbag company, and it was just not really thriving in Sarasota, and I couldn't really find a good craft show for myself that was a fit. And at the time, the Austin Craft Mafia started in Austin, Texas, and so I went and did one of their shows. I didn't sell very much, but I had a hell of a time, and I got to meet a lot of my craft heroes, sheroes who started this, indie thing. And I came back to Sarasota, and I said, I'm going to build it. I need to build my own craft show because I can't find one in Sarasota. And that's how it happened.
I think that's so great because, and I think when it comes to places, especially like Sarasota, like, I would consider it as like sleepy town, retired folks. So it's but it's definitely, as someone who has been a part of the Atomic Holiday Bazaar, one of the things that I find most impressive, and we're definitely going to talk about this, is the fact that how you kind of started, because obviously you started with the idea, and then when you started with the idea, can you tell a little bit, like, there's a lot of things that get involved with the process of starting, of doing this. There's a lot of things that you probably like, I want to do this, and then you're like super excited, and then all of a sudden it's like legal laws of like, these are the things that need to happen. So can you talk a little bit about like how that kind of came about when you first did the first one? Because I know your first event, obviously you started smaller. I mean, still a good size event,
Tiny.
50 vendors one day. But tell people a
Yeah.
little bit about kind of like that kind of evolution of how you kind of like dealt with that aspect of like, where am I going to do it at? What are the legal aspects of it that I need to do in order to do it? Because that could be overwhelming.
It can be. I was really fortunate. My first job was at Planned Parenthood, and I worked a lot with the development team. That wasn't my specific area, but everybody pitched in. And I learned a lot in the 5 years that I was there leading up to Atomic. With that, we did a lot of events at the Municipal Auditorium, and I had a girlfriend at the time who also worked in events and really high-end travel agency here. So we actually worked together, and I had a partner the first 2 years, and she was instrumental in helping put things together that would have probably slipped my mind. She was way more precise about dotting the T's and or dotting the I's and crossing the T's. I always get that backwards. So so that was really helpful. And then she was building a family, and crafting really wasn't her thing. So it was
Yeah.
it was a good break. We're still friends. She still comes to Atomic. Um, but as far as like figuring it out, we went everywhere. I mean, we went to a strip mall that we love in Gulfgate because we'd like to drink beer there. And we thought, oh, we could do it in the parking lot. Or, oh, and we looked all over Sarasota. And then it was just kind of like, well, duh. I love the Municipal Auditorium. I'm there all the time working. Why wouldn't I do it here?
Yeah.
So that's how it ended up. And but we really did, do our recon, trying to
Yeah.
find the right spot. So you just got to
When
keep,
that yeah,
keep
it's always
going.
the thing, right? Keep going and looking for it.
Right.
What so talk a little bit about, because one of the things that you've obviously it's evolved is the aspect that it's grown to the point now. So like I mentioned, it was originally 50 vendors. Now I think you're up to like 180 vendors, 2 days.
Yes.
There's food involved. Talk a little bit about the aspect of, and I don't want to go so far ahead. I want to talk a little bit still back behind, kind of like the evolution of this, and then how you kind of developed it. Like when you started it, what was it? One of the biggest things that I find most interesting about people who curate markets is trying to find the right people and trying to find what exactly you're looking for. Like your misfit makers. Like how did you find or come across like these are the folks that I want to have in my type of event? And because one of the things that, and we're gonna get to as well, is one thing that I find very amazing is the fact that people pay to get in to shop. It's not like you're just like a regular, I do markets all the time, but you're one of the few markets that people pay to go in because they are coming in to buy, which is what I
Yes,
love. So
they do. They
let
they do come shop.
let's talk a little bit about that, about how
Um,
that kind of evolved from finding the people, and then and kind of, and how you kind of what you kind of created to be like, these are what I consider a misfit maker that I want to have it at my events.
well, it used to be it sounds so antiquated and romantic. It was MySpace. So it was a very small community. And I just started looking for cool people who were kind of posting strange things that they were making. And it was all the way up to Tampa and St. Pete and Clearwater. And I started inviting them to Atomic, and they accepted my invitation. So that was great. I sent a postcard to, well, I'm veering off, but I sent a postcard to the editor of Creative Loafing in Sarasota, and I said, you need to be a part of something that's going to happen. It's really cool. And, you just need to do a story on this because there's never been anything like this. And I managed to catch their interest. So they put us on the cover, which was instrumental for the first day. I mean, for the first year. Then I started using oh, we even had an article up in Gainesville. The sassy crafter who runs Glam now, and she's actually even stayed with me years ago. She used to do our show, and she gave us press up all the way up in Gainesville. So, like, people were hungry for this.
Yeah.
It was like we all were kind of craving something a little more us.
Yeah.
And so then the next year, I believe Etsy started doing geo locating. So that came in super handy because I was really wanting to grow the show. And I was then, emailing them, convoing via Etsy. And so that's how I got more people. And then it just kind of started getting really crazy organic. So vendors were talking to other vendors, and I think that they were happy with the way they were their experience. They were actually making some money. And I think for the most part, they were having fun, which is always really important to me.
Yeah.
If I'm not having fun, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
So, you know, and so it just kind of grew and grew and grew. And honestly, now, I mean, I'm kind of ashamed to say I don't look for vendors anymore. I don't have to.
Correct.
And that really is great because it's time consuming. So,
Yeah.
and seriously, the talent is still great. It's still fresh and it still changes. And it's really interesting to see how my vendors from the very beginning who are still here have changed. I've watched them grow up. I've watched their businesses grow up.
Yeah.
I've been really lucky that way.
No, I love that. So a few things I kind of want to talk about before as we start going through the evolution of this. One is, so once you started doing atomic, did you stop doing your purses, like crafting and creating, or did you
Yeah.
do that as a way of like, hey, I can now sell my stuff while I'm also doing my event, which would be a smart way to go? Or
Oh yeah.
how did you kind of go about it? Did you stop doing, saying, hey, I'm just going to start doing more of this?
No, I sold for the first 3 years. And then I think I sold vintage because that's my other business. And then the show just got too big and I just couldn't do it. And also my handbags just weren't fresh anymore. And to be honest, I couldn't compete with India or China. It was really impossible because my bags are generally pretty thickly beaded and embroidered, and I just couldn't. It just was, yeah, I'm sure you know that defeating feeling where you're like, shit, this costs too much, but
Yeah.
so it just didn't quite work out that way. I'm always making things. I mean, you'll
Yeah.
have to come over to the house someday because I mean, there's just always something going on. But I I really need to focus for this. For me, the joy of Atomic, because I didn't really find my calling in life until much later in life. It really took a long time to grow up, and I love marketing. I love selling the shit out of Atomic and getting people through the door
Yeah.
to shop. And that seeing my vendors make money and then also seeing the line who's paying admission because my time is valuable too.
Yeah.
It's awesome. I mean, I'm really fortunate and I work hard for it and I treasure my atomic weekend. It's my tradition.
Yeah. No, I think and it trust me, it is amazing. But I had
Thank you.
a I had a question since you talked about making your purses and all that stuff. And I had read this and I never knew this and I need to ask because I was like, I'm just gonna ask it. Did I read correctly they used to design costumes for rock bands in LA?
I did. Yeah, it's true. I was a total party girl in Los Angeles. I moved there the day of high school commencement when I was 18, and I could have gone to college for free because my father was an art professor, but I just wanted to get out of Youngstown as quickly as I could. So I made my most famous things that I did were Elvis costumes for Greg Tortel of Dred Zeppelin. And so I did a lot of Elvis costumes, and one of them's on, I think, their second album cover, which was really a cool experience. I made a vest for Slash, and
Wow.
then I was pretty much a groupie girl, and so I was always the like, the seamstress for the band. So I made a bunch of clothes for a lot of bands that you wouldn't know. And then also I sold vintage privately. So I would, uh, ship, I'd visit my family in Ohio and then I'd send stuff back Greyhound. And I had a lot of private clients that bought vintage and I sold on Melrose and yeah, but it was fun and I really costuming is truly my great love and I wish that I mean I'm always building clothes for myself,
Yeah.
which I get anyway.
I love that. No, and I think that's part of the creative process. That's one of the things that I love is the fact that you how the and it's kind of all kind of blends if you, it all makes sense then because of the aspect from the fact that you're like I love creating things to then going like well I'm creating my bags to then going hey I want to create something that other people can do because I'm not seeing it either and seeing a need for it and now you've created this community
It
of
is a community.
yeah
It really is. I mean, you get to hang out with I think some of the most uh, for me the most normal people on the planet. We're all quirky, but I think we're mostly kind.
yeah
Unless, we have to, get a little zippy, but I think we're a kind bunch. We're funny. Um, and we are genuinely interested in like talking to our species,
yeah.
and that's something that is uh I'm afraid I don't want us to lose that. It's
No,
important.
I totally agree with that. And I will say that So I am one of those that heard from about Atomic through word of mouth. And I was very fortunate that when I applied, I was told by my friend Kelly Brott from Brott's Beard Care, and he was like,
Who
dude,
I
you
love,
have
and I
to.
just listened to your podcast last night.
Oh, really? And
Yeah,
so he was one of my very first guests. He was actually my guest before I even had a podcast. He was like, I want to test it out. I want you to be my guest. So like I
sweet.
actually have interviewed him like twice, but he's one of my great friends. And
I
so he
know.
told me, he's like, hey, he's like, you definitely need to come. He's like, I promise you. And let me tell you something. I will tell you that it was probably I had no idea what the heck Atomic was, but it was Atomic when I first sold. The first time I ever sold at Atomic, I remember my wife and daughter came, and I
Uh-huh.
remember as soon as we were done, I think it was like a 5 o'clock had finished. It was like the event ended at 5, and it went by so fast because I sold so much that I remember that I at the time I had sold at other places, and I was like, oh, I should be more than enough. I ran out of everything. I ran out of
I know you
bags.
did. I remember.
I had to
I
go to like I had to like
know.
look for like I was looking for a store to buy paper bags. I had to buy more pay I had to do like buy more notes, guest check notes, and I remember just sitting in my hotel just like literally stamping and writing because
I've
I
heard
was
so
like,
many vendors say that on Saturday night.
yes.
They think they're going to have a nice dinner and have a
Yep.
drink to unwind. And no, they are hustling and making more,
Yep.
getting it together for the next
Yep,
day.
yep. And it was an amazing, absolutely amazing thing. And then I pretty much after that became a disciple, and I was like, I'm telling everybody about this place.
I love you.
And the beauty of it is the fact that how you've done it. I mean, you pretty much sell out now. Like your application process usually is like when does your application
I
process
usually,
start?
I used to always turn it live tax day, April 15th, because that's when I always had money, was when
Yeah,
I got a tax return. So I figured, okay, I'm going to do it on April 15th because people are getting money. Now I'm turning it on even sooner just because so many people are applying. And I like to just give myself a little more time to graze. But I mean, I could sell out pretty much within like a month.
yeah.
And because there is that quality of applicants. But I have been keeping it open just because, I want to see some new things. And, you're not going to be here this year, which is very, very sad. And I'm sure Kelly is having a
Yeah,
very sad moment about
he is.
that. I'm like, who should I put him next to? I don't know.
I will say, like, that's one of the things I guess I'm going to be kind of curious of because you've seen an evolution of like you mentioned before, like your folks that started in the beginning to where they are now that are been doing it for the last 16 years with you. Can you talk a little bit about what do you think has been the recipe for their success, or what have you noticed that you mentioned something about how they've evolved. I'm always kind of curious on businesses on how they can be able to obviously evolve and pivot. One of them obviously that I find very interesting that I actually met at Atomic was Up All Night. She's
Yeah.
been that's where I got to meet her at Atomic, and I was always impressed because like the first time I met her, she was selling mostly headbands. Now it's evolved. So I'm always
Mhm.
kind of curious, what do you think has been the recipe for success?
Change.
You think so?
Change. Yeah, I think change, but then I also think that yeah, you got to keep it fresh. I mean, that's just the bottom line. Atomic fans um are very dedicated people and they stay, well, they will come every year. You've seen them line up.
In the
And
rain.
even after the pandemic and moving to a new venue, I was really concerned about that. And the giant sign, I was like, oh great, we got a digital sign and it was blown over from a hurricane. But people camped out on Saturday morning at 8 a.m. just to get a tote bag. And those tote bags are so special because you
Yeah.
guys all make them really special. And so it was just awesome to see. And I mean, they're dedicated. They're as dedicated to my show as some of my vendors are. So you have to keep it fresh for them. And then they of course have they're fans of certain certain makers too. But I mean, you got to keep it fresh. I mean, like, look at Sarah Lee. I mean, she was one of the first to do Stitch of Whimsy, one of the first to do faux taxidermy, one of the very first. And I mean, people were ripping her off left and right on Etsy. I mean, there was some clear lifts. And I mean, and I'm pretty generous as far as like sharing public domain stuff because I
Yeah.
feel like, trends kind of hit us and it's kind of organic that way. But I've watched that girl, literally grow up where, I have Christmas ornaments that she made from like maybe the beginning and they are delicious and darling because everything she makes is just so, you know, scrumptious. But I mean, she's really changed. And even with her taxidermy, like that too has changed, like now she's really into mushrooms and she's really into bats. And maybe she's always been into them, but now she's really like developed it. And the same with like, Carolina. I mean, she has like, you name it, that woman has brought it and it
Yeah.
has changed and the patterns have changed and the fabric has changed. Um, I mean, it's like you just listen, sandwiches are always going to be classic, but there's always room for another sandwich t-shirt. So you
Correct.
got to keep it fresh.
No,
That's it.
I totally agree with you. And it's something that is very difficult sometimes to be able to do. And then at the same time, I'm kind of curious, like what catches your eye? Because like as someone curates an event, especially this big, what captures your eye? Like what are some of the things like what would be something like I figure if my listener is like someone who owns a small business and they're trying to capture attention, not even for an atomic, but just like maybe in their area and they're like, hey, I want to be able to do this. What are some things that you think are must haves or musts for a small business to be able to kind of showcase what they're doing that would say, oh, I like what you're doing? Because obviously you have a certain there's only one other person that I know of that has like I did something recently, Lakeland, the punk rock flea, and he was very similar to you in the
I
sense
want to
of
go to that. Yeah.
because it has a very similar taste or feel to it in the sense that they're very curate. You could tell he picks who he curates. There is no selection. He actually curates who you want, and if you want to, then you sign up. But I'm always kind of curious for someone because you also have it set up where there's a mixture of curation, but then there's also the mixture of where placement of where you put people so that they kind of like I want to know a little bit about that because I think that's such a that is a talented art of like of place of where
Oh,
people
I've
get
messed it up
placed.
before. Trust me, I
Yeah,
have
well, and
messed
that's
it
why I'm
up,
kind of curious
and
about
I
like
deeply apologize. I mean, first off, you never want to put a knitter next to a knitter. I mean, and I did that, and I will never do it to the redheaded stepchild again, ever. Um, so you learn. It's like getting an ice bath, bath thrown at
yeah,
you. You're like, oh crap, how did I miss that? I try to really pay attention to not having the same thing because there are a lot of similarities in genres that are just that's just the way it is. There are trends. So you really have to, first off, I always want my vendors to be happy. So I give them the option of who do you want to be next to because it's a long ass day and you're going to need a break. And, it really helps to be next to a partner that has your back. So I always try to do that. So there's all these things, health needs. Do you need to be near an exit? You got to think about those things. But as far as like, I try to get the vibe of the vendor. And so if they're new and they don't know anybody, I try to like put them next to somebody that I think is different, but might complement like person who's walking as a shopper and they're like, ooh, that was fabulous. And then they move on to the next table and they're like, cool, yeah, this is like the second part of that meal. You know what I mean? It's like it just kind of has a continuity
yeah.
of making sense. So that's how I try to do it. Of course, there's hiccups and things like that, but you just got to try to vibe it.
That makes sense. What about for people like if for people when they apply, what are some things that you're constantly like looking at? Kind of what are like some must-haves like, hey, these are things that I'm looking for that kind of catch my eye when someone applies and I'm looking at your social or looking at certain things? Is there anything in particular that you kind of attribute that kind of captures you? You're like, yeah, this is someone that I think would be a good fit for Atomic.
Well, I mean, I am a rock and roll punk rock new wave girl, and so I like graphics, and I like bright colors, and I like edgy stuff, and I like things that are a little offensive, and I like swear words, and I like sex and rock and roll. I like all of that crap, So, but with that, I've grown up with the show, and I try to like reach into like what I was when I was a little girl, and I love really cute things if they're really done well. I love stickers just like everybody else does. I've got a door which is covered in all of my stickers. Um, I mean, and also, like I'm also kind of like a hippie girl. I never thought I was, but I really like being outside and I love nature. And so I try to view things from my friends' point of view who are different than me and who dress differently and who style their homes differently. So I really try to have like I guess you could call me Sybil. I have like all these different personalities in me and I try to satisfy them all, you know. But what I do like when somebody applies is I like a catchy name. I really like it when they have a website or Instagram or something and follow through, man. I mean, follow through. Don't fill out an application. And if you don't have a website, remember to send some photos in because I've got crap to do and I don't want to email you and, ask you for them. I mean, if you really wanted, like, if you're really serious about growing your business, you have to do your chores.
No, that makes total
But
sense. Um,
yeah,
you have been really, really good at like have a great sense of like the trends and the happenings, like where Atomic features a lot of the different style trends and merchandise and stuff like that, that usually does make it into like big box stores and stuff like that. What do you attribute to that? Of like being able to figure out, and then are you seeing any trends that you think we're kind of going into in the next few years that you think people are kind of like, hey, I see more of this coming in because you pretty much are a good trendsetter.
well, thank you. I do call myself terminally trendy. Um,
I love it.
it's funny, I've seen it all. I remember when steampunk came along and I absolutely loved it. And, I mean, I could rattle off a ton of things that I've seen you know, I mean, my press release this year was like, we determine trends and I could walk you through Walmart or Target and point out in the card section to clothing to home decor, you know, what we were doing a few years before. As far as what I see, as far as trends that I think is interesting, is I think that people are kind of trying to get a little earthier. And I don't know if that's because of all the discussion about climate. I've seen a huge rise in ceramic arts and people who are getting together to make them because you need a kiln, you need this equipment, and so
Yeah.
usually it's one person who has it and it's a gathering, so it's got a real nice kind of communal thing to it. Also plants, I mean, I never had them in the beginning and they've been a part of the show, but I've been finding that I had an interesting applicant who's not ready for business. They backed out, but they want to come back next year. And it's a composting business.
Interesting.
They're very serious about it and selling their soil. So, I see those type of trends. I'm hoping in the future to see less of the resins and plastic, which I mean, I do love a good resin pour. I've got a lot of, you know, I love it. I really do. But what I'm hoping to see is a little more thought as far as how we move forward with the materials that we use. And whether that happens, I don't know.
Yeah.
Um, it's really hard, and I can't say no to somebody who makes something really cool, who happens to be
Yeah.
making resin. I'm like, okay, cool.
That I will say that I think one of my favorite things when I have time to actually walk around And at least when my wife would come to the events, like she loved it because she knew that when you walk out of Atomic, you are walking out with very unique gifts to be able to gift for the holiday or for obviously for herself. And that was one of my favorite things about your event is the fact that you have like there it's all out there, like you're like, I've never would have thought of this, I've never seen this, or
Me
you know,
too. I'm like,
which
my
is
God,
so
that's
cool.
brilliant.
Yeah.
Eureka.
Yeah. Adrien, what do you do when you aren't running Atomic? Because obviously Atomic is during a weekend thing. So I know you mentioned vintage. Do you still sell vintage as
I am.
well?
I will never probably ever give that up because I'm always at a thrift store or a yard sale or something. Yeah, I sell vintage. I was just in Denver. I was just shopping at all my old favorite haunts there. I had an empty suitcase just so I could bring all my vintage haul back. I'll start selling vintage again after Atomic. I sell mid-century modern furniture. I fix things. And also after my father died, my husband and I actually had some money for the first time in my life. So we bought a house in Garrettsville, Ohio, which is next to the fourth largest Amish settlement in the world.
Wow.
So I'm in the middle of nowhere, and I spend most of my time in the summer. I've been rehabbing a house for the past 2 years. So I spent a lot of time looking up YouTube videos trying to learn how to fix crap and how to kill mice.
Once again creating something or learning how to create something,
Yeah,
which is
and
impressive.
warfare with rodents. But
Really? Okay.
oh yeah, the house was infested. Like we wouldn't
Oh,
have moved in if we had known what we were moving into. It could be a movie it could be a Halloween movie. And they were so smart. They're brilliant little country mice. They really are. Gotta hand it to
that's cr-
them.
that's absolutely crazy. So I I'm always kind of curious, where did the idea come from? And was it always from the beginning that you started the idea? Because we had talked about this already a little bit, and about how people stand in line. The first 100 people that go to Atomic, first 100 guests get a swag bag. And it's filled with all different things from all the different vendors. And at the same time, they come in. So I know it's like adults pay like $6, 12 and under come in free. What made you come up with that idea? And when did you implement it during the 16 years? Has that always been something you've done?
Oh yeah. We the first year, my girlfriend who had a store, a boutique in the Rosemary district, she ordered the paper bags for us and they were massive. I thought I'm horrible with math, I'm horrible with sizes. Yeah, you name it. It's a miracle I can sew. Anyway, we had these giant bags, and so we had like brought they were the Braden Tucky Bombers before it was like a huge league, and they were passing them out to like it would be like a 2-year-old who was carrying this bag that was like as big as them, which was ridiculous. But I actually learned that in development at Planned Parenthood. It's like, you and the Oscars, you you just sweeten the deal. And I like to promote myself. And so I was always willing to like, sure, I can put a bag as a golden surprise in something or donate it for a silent auction. And I have to say, and I have to give street cred, total props to Carrie from Cab Fair because it was probably, oh boy, I want to say like the third year of the show, maybe the fourth. And I've known her since she was sewing clothes and she was a baby. Anyway, she out of the clear blue gave 200 brooches I mean, I didn't even ask. I didn't even think to ask. I would never even think. I mean, because they're so,
Yeah.
that's so time consuming. Um, she made those bags so special. And then also like some of the people who were screening them for me or doing the artwork, housebroken clothing, did a bag. I mean, um, I've been so fortunate with uh, how generous people are with their time because not only are they working for themselves to sell stuff at the show,
Yeah.
but they're making these totes special you know, for people who are coming to our show. And that helped really grow, I think, Atomic. I really do. I'm so happy that it's still going on. I did paper bags last year, and I actually had a fan of Atomic stop me. I don't know if I've ever met her. I don't recall ever meeting her. And she said, "Hey, just want you to know that I miss the totes. I want the cotton totes." And she's like, "I actually use them." And I was like, "Well, I read this article in the New York Times about how they're filling up landfills and blah, blah." Well, you know what? I actually do believe that our vendors really do use them because I know I use all mine that I get.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, damn, girl, she took the time to like stop me in the middle of all this crazy chaos and find me and tell me that. She's right. I'm going to do the totes again.
Yeah.
And I appreciated that because I knew that she was coming back for more,
Yeah.
you know?
No, I think that's great, and it's great to be able to get feedback from the people around you that are actually, coming and supporting, for the last 16 years. I think that's like super,
Absolutely.
super important. You do a really good job at marketing the events. You're on TV. I've seen you on, like, you've done news segments. You've done a really good job at showcasing other small businesses. Which is something that I appreciate. That's one of the reasons why one of the reasons why I even do this podcast is because I feel like I have a sense of need of being able to actually show love to other small businesses as well. And you do a heck of a job because obviously you want to be able to showcase people and tell people, hey, look, this is what I have coming. They're coming from all across the state to sell, and you do such a good job. What are some of the things that you've been able to adapt or to do to get the word out like that? Because I mean, I see it in newspapers. I've gotten interviewed by the paper. I mean, there's so many different things that you kind of do and how you put it out there. What are some things that you have found to be successful, that has been successful for Atomic's growth, but also maybe for a small business, of like what should be things that they should be looking at that maybe they haven't considered trying to do to kind of get the word out for themselves?
I still send postcards to business owners when I'm going through local magazines. I send them a personal postcard of this year's postcard and invite them. I mean, I'm not offering it for free, but like,
Yeah.
hey, you should come check us. You might find something you can sell at your store. I always send out press releases. I know I should be on TikTok, but I'm just that ship has sailed along with X/Twitter. Um, and so I just try to keep it real. I only send out two constant contact emails, save the date, and then pretty much a couple days before with a preview of swag bag and links to everything and the news, and things like that. And I send thank yous. I think thank yous, old school thank yous, handwritten, very similar to I mean, to purchase a t-shirt from you it can take me right back to like having my pen pal from Edmonton, Canada when I was a little girl, or all my pen pals from summer camp, and the way we would send like special pencils to each other and stuff like that, and stickers from, I mean, it's just, there's something about, and it doesn't take a lot
Nope.
to do that. I used to blog a lot because I really like to write. But I'm finding that I'm not doing that as much because people don't read. So I'm trying to curb my diarrhea of the mouth because I really type that way too, as you
Yeah,
already
I'm the same
know.
way. I'm the same way.
So it's hard. I'm going to be a dinosaur at some point. And I did have a vendor last year say to me, "Well, I thought there would be younger people there," and I could totally dig what he was saying. But we all get our time in the crafty sun, and then somebody gets to carry the torch.
Yeah. Well, I mean, 16 years, and what's the amazing part about it is, out of the 16 years, tell me if I'm wrong, is it the last 4 or 5 you've not been in Sarasota? You've actually lived
I
somewhere
lived in
else?
Denver. My
Yeah, I was
husband
gonna
and I moved to
say,
Denver in
I
2018.
remember
Yeah.
that. I remember that. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's about 5, 6 years that you've
Yeah.
kind of
We're
lived
home
in
now.
different.
I mean,
Okay.
yeah. But yeah, so we did the show 2018, 2019, and then the pandemic hit. And honestly, it was a good thing because that was the last year my father was alive. So I didn't have to manage Atomic, and I spent so much time with him. and it was
Yeah.
just a beautiful experience. I treasure it. So the pandemic was kind of a weird little, bugger, but
Yeah.
and awful. I'm not being trite.
Yeah.
It sucked. It sucked for everybody. And I think the repercussions of that are like, are still
Still,
vibrating
yep,
out,
we're still
you
feeling it.
know?
I agree. I totally agree with that. What advice would you give someone that's looking to start something?
Well, having just started really listening to your podcast, and I am a fan because this is the kind of stuff I love to talk about and listen to. Um, there seems to be a theme, put up or shut up. Get off, get off the pot. Just do it. Life's short. Nobody's gonna buy you a ticket. You gotta do it.
Yeah.
And just keep chiseling away. That's, I think, the most important thing. And I also think have fun. Like, don't freak out about it. It's not rocket science. You're allowed to mess up. I know sometimes mistakes can be expensive financially, and that can be horribly depressing. I've gone through it. I have really, I've gone through it. I have a new vendor, and she was posting on Instagram about a show she had who hasn't sold anything. She's a new vendor. I'm going to show her on The View. I love what she's up to. And I sent her an email today and I said, I just want to hug you. I was like, listen, I've been there. I said, don't let it kick you in the ass. Just brush it off because the biorhythms of shoppers are a mystery sometimes. But what I do know is if you're going to be somebody in a small business who's selling in the craft world, and picking your shows. And I was listening to Kelly as far as like, how he chooses his shows.
Yeah.
I mean, another thing is time. And let's be straight up. If we live in Florida, we got season and we got the holidays, and the holidays exist nationwide. So if you're going to travel somewhere to do a show, you make damn sure it's during a holiday when people are selling frivolously. Do
Yeah.
not take that business expense unless you know you're going to kill it.
Yeah.
Don't take risks, be smart. Don't, I mean, take risks, but be smart about it. And play off, ask other people, who are in the biz, or ask your friends. And, I think you just gotta, you know what I mean, Becky? You
I
know what I
totally know
mean?
what you. I totally know what you
That's what
mean.
we're here for, to
Yeah.
live.
Yeah, I mean, and I think a lot of times that's kind of the thing. We get kind of stuck on ourselves, or we get lost on our own thoughts or in our own fears, and those are all very difficult things. And those are some of the things that I've kind of, I will say for me, and I've realized now, I guess going through the evolution, because obviously I do work a corporate job and I do this on the side, and even though it's like another full-time job after work, I do it because it's like there's a love for it and there's a passion which allows it to grow. And then sometimes that's not always, I think that's the hardest part. I think what I've noticed from vendors are the ones that either a jump too soon to go and do it full time because they love it so much, then it becomes work, and then it becomes even harder. And then the stress is, if you're not selling, then all of a sudden it becomes, what the heck do I do? I can't do this. And then
Burden.
it becomes a job, and then you
Right.
lose that passion that you had goes away. And
That's why I try to encourage a lot of my vendors who are new. And I really like what they're doing, but I'm not sure how it's going to be received to do
yeah,
a half table because it's a really small business investment.
yeah,
And it's not because I'm trying to discourage them from what they're doing. It's just that I don't want them to take that business risk because I know how it was when I was younger, and $50 is still a lot of money to me.
yeah.
So, but I know, I'm frugal. And I mean, I'll spend money, but I mean, it's like I understand. So like it makes me uncomfortable to see somebody take a risk who I don't know. I don't feel 100%. Like I want them to just kind of start small. So
Yeah.
I do
No,
try and guide that, you
I
know.
I totally get that, and I totally understand that. Where so tell people, because obviously tell people where, obviously, when Atomic is, because I know originally it's changed, but I have a feeling this is the new permanent time frame that it'll be on.
I
Tell
might do
people.
two shows next year. I might
Oh,
do two shows next year. I have a date reserved at the auditorium in December for the second weekend of December, just
oh,
one day.
Okay.
So next, listen, I'm getting a little long in the tooth here. It's 16. Really, Atomic should be 18. I was planning on trying to like maybe exit at 20. But uh, Atomic this year is at Robarts Arena at the Sarasota Fairgrounds. That's
November,
Saturday, Small Business Saturday from noon to 5:30. And then Sunday Fun Day, which is 11 to 5. And yeah, next year is, I think I'm going to just throw in another day down at the auditorium, but a small show, no street fair, just anyway, I'm working on it.
I love it. I
I'd
love it.
love for you to be a part of it.
I think that, trust me, if I wasn't going away on vacation with my family, I would, this is
Oh,
pretty much,
schmamly.
yeah, right. That's kind of, and if it wasn't, to be honest, the hardest part is probably the fact that like I love the idea of a December one because I knew that's what it originally where how it was,
Yeah,
and then it went to Small Business Saturday, and it's just, there's kind of good and bad with when it comes to that. I feel like I sometimes do think what's very interesting, and that's kind of one of the hardest part when I do some of the events is like there's so many people sometimes, and then like you kind of can tell people, which I love the way the auditorium is set up because
so do
people kind
I.
of do they do laps. Like the first lap is like, okay, let me see what captures my eye. And the good thing about it is the way it's set up and the way all the tables are all set up. And it's like literally, I mean, an entire auditorium, you
Oh,
know.
last year was a disaster. I mean, I'll be straight up. First off, my floor plan and then the manager's floor plan, he actually had an extra set of tables. So while you guys were all coming in, I was madly trying to tear the tables down and I couldn't find him anywhere. And everybody he had that worked for him either had COVID or the flu.
Wow.
So, bless his heart, he was under it. And so I wasn't about to yell at him for anything because it
Yeah.
was my mistake that I sent him that. And, but this year there's actually going to be a little bit of space for vendors to move in and out. So, yeah, but I mean that was my first run there and it was a learning experience. Yes, must have music loud
Yeah.
because we are rockers and we like loud music. So that was really kind of a bummer, but oh my God, I can't believe I'm sharing all these awful secrets about
No.
Atomic that happened last year. Anyway,
But I mean, but the thing is this, you've learned from those. It's kind of the evolution of what you've done. It's almost like exactly what a teenager does. A
but
teenager
you
makes
guys were all so
mistakes.
nice to me. I mean,
Well, yeah,
really,
because
honestly, you just roll with it.
but you
You
kind of have
did.
to. I mean, you kind of have to. I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, listen, the fact that I got to come in earlier, I get to drive in earlier and then be able to set up the day like a few hours before. That
That's
was
very
huge for me.
helpful.
That was
Yeah.
huge for me to be able to do. And I love the fact that you do listen to what we say. Cause I know there was like one of the days, I think it was like a little bit longer and you kind of like, hey, maybe we'll shorten it a little
Oh, it
bit
was horrible.
because it got to a point where like there is always a lull at an event. There's always that weird lull towards the end where it just kind of like almost like just like stops and it just like
Drips.
yeah, and
It
you're like,
just
what is going
drips.
on here? So
Yeah.
I totally get it, but I absolutely love, and it's amazing because like even though you and I we interact because obviously through social, but interact when we've seen each other through the years. But I absolutely love like what you've created, the community that you've built of Atomic. And that was one of the big reasons why I wanted to, like when we talked last year, I was like, I want to have you on because I want people to know about it. I think if anything, they could be inspired by it. Even
Thank
if
you,
they're,
baby.
when it comes to it,
Thank
because of
you.
the fact of like the different vendors and different things that you do. So to me, I love it. I'm super proud and super excited the fact that you listen to my episode. I saw you shared Dark Cycle because that's obviously how I've met a lot of these folks as
You've
well.
been
Like I've
keeping me company every
yeah,
night.
well, that's
That's what
good.
I listen
That's
to.
good.
I listen to it in bed with my eyes
I
closed. I've been
love it.
listening to it a little bit when I'm working, but I like it better at the end of the day. And yeah, I'm really excited to share your podcast with everyone because I think there's a lot of us out there. And Peggy, my God, I'm so impressed. Like I listened to your intro and like just the thought of, you were talking about it. And then when I saw like this vast library, I was like, damn, he slayed it. I mean,
it
seriously, I'm
it's
proud of you.
Thank you very much.
That's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work, and that's one of those where like sometimes people ask me like, well, wait a second, don't you run a business? Like what do you do spending time doing on a podcast? And To be honest, the reason I do it is because I love being able to share different businesses. It's kind of the same idea like you, how you find people that do different things. I love being able to share their stories. I think everyone's got an amazing origin story, and I love the people that intrigue me. I want to talk to them. I want people to know about them. And if I can get one other person to like be a new get them a new follower, or get them someone that's going to go shop for them, or tell, hey, I heard about this person, you should go check them
Right.
out, like that I'm doing something. I'm trying to, I just want to,
I feel the
right.
same way. I can sell the hell out off of, any I can atomic, I can sell it.
Yeah.
Myself, when I used to work in like clothing sales in high school, oh my God, I was horrible. I'd be like, this is really poorly made and you know,
That is great. So no, I absolutely, I definitely will be there in 2024. I definitely make my episodes evergreen, but I definitely wanted to make sure that people that listen to this, if they're in the Sarasota area visiting family or live there, or want to take a little trip during small business Saturday and all of that, definitely go come out the 25th and the 26th of November. Definitely
yeah.
go check them out. Follow Atomic. You'll see all the in the show notes and everything like that. Thank you so much, Adrian. That is our
Oh, I
show
love
for.
you. I love you. I love you. And you're going to be missed this year. And I know people are going to ask me where you are because when fan favorites aren't there, shoppers
Yeah.
find me and they're like, "Where's so and so?"
Yeah.
So,
No,
I'll just tell them that.
I definitely appreciate it. They can always obviously shop online, but I definitely yeah, no, I love, there is a high when you get to do that interaction and be able to do those things. And and I will definitely miss it. Trust me, I definitely will miss
Oh,
it.
you just have fun with your family. I
Oh,
think it's great.
well, I
And
appreciate that.
we'll see you next year, right, babe?
For sure. No, for sure.
Uh,
That's our
all
show
right.
for today. Thank you so much to Adrian Lucas of Atomic
Thank
Holiday
you.
Bazaar. Definitely, you'll see all the show notes. Definitely check them out. I think even if you just follow and see some of the different vendors that are there, it'll be a great thing for you to be able to kind of interact and meet different vendors and see different people that are creating different things. If you want to support me, check out my brand, Deli Fresh Threads. If you like the episode, share it, tell your friends about it. Definitely check out. That's one of the reasons why I make them evergreen, is I want people to be able to listen to them at any time from the beginning all the way to now. There's so many different amazing businesses and brands that I've dealt with and gotten to interact with. Definitely give them a follow. Thank you. Until next time, keep eating sandwiches and follow your passion. Thanks, everyone.